We're live. You're in an airport.
Oh, again.
What's the Fort Wayne airport look like? How is it?
That's it.
That's it? One gate.
There are 10 gates, and I think almost everyone in here is from the Masters Fitness Championship.
Nice. That's hey. That's great. Is it the smallest airport you've been in the world travels?
Yeah, I think so, because in Iron Games I didn't fly into the local one. We flew into Vegas and drove. I didn't fly into the local one in Michigan. I drove from O'Hare. Obviously, Madrid and Stockholm and Oslo have much bigger airports. Went through DFW, Nashville. So yeah, this has got to be the smallest one.
Yeah. Nothing like regional airports. But for those who don't know, Brian is in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which if you saw the thumbnail or if you've been following him, he's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. What are you in Fort Wayne, Indiana for?
To go home finally? No, I was here for the Masters Fitness Championship.
Yeah.
Year four Masters Fitness Championship. I came here last year. Had a good time, stayed in touch with them. And so we wanted to make it work again this year. The dilemma, if there was one, is that it overlapped with Power Monkey Camp. So I missed the last day of Power Monkey Camp and the first day here. Both parties were cool about that. And so I'm happy to be able to be a part of both of those things this year.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Power Monkey, you flew back from Norway you went straight to Nashville. I mean, well, you flew to Nashville, drove from Nashville to Power.
Actually, I stopped in Houston for 40 hours.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
And that was actually amazing. It was my closest friends from childhood. Their dad was turning 70. He's been a mentor of mine for a long time, and I kind of surprised him. His family was there, and I took a family trip with his whole extended family to Italy years ago, so I know all of them really well. And then we went back for his oldest son, who's my best friend's wedding in Italy a few years after that. So I know their whole family well. It was a great occasion. Obviously, 7 years is a significant number, and it was nice to be able to see them, even if it was a short trip.
Yeah, well, it's good to have you back. Oh, sorry. We'll talk about that. While you're gone, me and Chad been busy while you're out, being international man of travel. And we have the new merch is available online. It's the newest drop. You go to the B.Friendly and you click on the top of the B.Friendly. It should say store, and it should take you right to the fall merch. We got this nice earthy fall color. And, of course, one of Brian's favorite hoodies. Brian's a big fan of hoodies. I like the back, the face logo on the back. That's kind of cool. So.
Oh, my God. That's probably loud.
But also, if you haven't seen it, part of the fall line is our World Tour oversized tee. If you want to kind of know where I probably should get one of these and just wear it whenever I'm on a show, so I know where you're at. But those are available as well. But our new fall merch is now available. Brian, you should be getting some here shortly. But we have everything from the crop hooded sweatshirt. We have the women's crop crew. I don't know why it's women. I mean, guys, if they want a crop sweatshirt, help yourself. And then, yeah. So as you can see, we have different tones there, more of the fall colors. Initial thoughts on it, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, Chad obviously has been sending us some different stuff over the last couple of weeks, and I like it. It's simple. It looks clean. It's a little different colors than we've had previously. And I should be wearing some down at Crucible 2 weeks from now. I think this pre-sales goes through Crucible at least. Mm-hmm. So if you be down there, you'll get to see them in person. And then, I actually don't know what the plan is. I think we might. Are we going to have some of these eventually at some of the sites we're at?
I think we have talked about Crucible, having some at Crucible. if
I don't know
anything.
about Crucible, but I think maybe Rogue and Desert City, or Desert City and
Yeah,
Charlotte Classic, or something like that.
it will. Yeah, definitely Rogue. We'll have them at Rogue. Sherpa Works, who produces these, they will be a vendor at Rogue. So we'll have some B.Friendly merch there at Rogue, including the T-Bird ass. How do they fit? Are they true to size? I would imagine so. Except for the oversized. If it says oversized, then it's oversized. It'll be one size bigger, but everything else should be true to size. T-Bird.
Yeah, and I think Ken's also going to have a booth at Desert City and Charlotte Classic, so I think that we'll have some stock at those as well. But obviously, if you want to guarantee to get what you want, the pre-sale is the best way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this hoodie and I'm like, that's a Brian Friend color. There's nothing more on brand than that right there.
Yep, I'll have one of those shortly.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you guys, as always, we love putting out the merch. I know everyone likes. Oh, speaking of Masters athletes, my buddy good old Brian Clapp. Did you get a chance to talk to Brian at all?
I did. I saw him both days that I was here. He was competing Masters teams of 2,
Mm-hmm.
which I'll write a little bit about that. I'm working on the next memoir for the Masters Fitness Championship right now. So he competed there, and I can't remember if it was the last workout or second last workout, but he was very happy to have whooped up on Ron Ortiz in that one.
Me and Brian have some history. Me and him actually judged together, and he's a real good friend of mine. Real good guy. He's actually married to Steph, who is a former games athlete, and she actually has done some judging too. I know she's judged out at Wodapalooza with him, so it's always good. Lifetime achievement. That's his marrying Steph. That's his lifetime achievement. And this is those who know Brian, or is a lifetime achievement being a judge with me, Brian. But yeah, but yeah. So
he's a great guy, and we see him on the road all the time, but usually judging, rarely competing. So it's fun to see him in a different role, a little more relaxed, enjoying himself. He was hanging out even after they finished yesterday, cheering on some friends, watching the rest of the competition. So it's cool to see him doing some different stuff, a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, I think he's kind of taken a step back from judging. I know he does a lot of traveling for work, and of course, being married, he has a beautiful house there in Georgia, just outside of Athens. Huge Georgia fan. He's got adult children. He's got an English pit bull, but he has a really cool place there. Nice setup, a nice outdoor rig. No, it's just cool seeing him and some of the other judges that I kind of came up with. They're kind of like moved on to other things, and it's kind of cool seeing that. He goes, both marriage beating Rod actually twice. It was a great competition, well organized. So let's talk about that, Brian. Let's talk about the Master Fitness Collective. I was there year 1 during COVID. It was one of the first live competitions I went to. It was first the teen, and then right after the teen, I went to the Master Fitness Collective. Ran by Bobby Petrus and their little organization, the Master Fitness Collective team that they have there. It was well organized there. I mean, they do it right downtown Fort Wayne. They actually had a couple of events that were in the minor league ballpark that were right in the center of downtown, and right across the street was the convention center, which they had at every year. And I mean, this is your second year being there compared to last year, compared to this year. Major differences, initial thoughts on it.
Well, unfortunately, both years I missed the swimming workout, and they have a nice aquatic center here that they get to use. It's for the Masters community in general. The game season, there used to be 3, there's now 4 stages of it, but only one of them is in person. It's been pretty limited in terms of who can actually qualify and make it there. And so even after the 2020 season, when there was no games, and that was kind of the reason that this thing was created, was to give them a chance to compete, they've decided to keep it going, and they try to offer, it's a 3-day competition for Masters athletes, live competition. You get to swim. They always have some, little changes year to year in terms of available equipment and what you get to do, but it's one of the better Masters competitions out there, and one of the few opportunities that they have to get this kind of sort of games or semifinal feel in terms of the breadth and depth of the test. So they had 3 days, 40 divisions, 32 individual. There were 16 elite, 16 RX divisions, and then eight teams of two. The teams of two divisions are just like by 10-year age bracket. So it's everyone in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and then 60 plus, of course, for men and women on all those divisions. So there's a lot of opportunity to compete here if you're a master's athlete. And the skills are, especially in the divisions under 50, you got to be able to do ring muscle ups. You got to be able to walk on your hands. You got to move, 200-pound sandbag, 365-pound deadlift, 205 power clean for reps. Like CJ Martin does a lot of the programming here and or has for the last couple of years, and he pushes these guys. Like, you're going to get into some of these workouts and you're going to be like, or even look at them when they're announced and say, man, that's heavy or that's tough or I don't know. And oftentimes what you see is just people rising to the occasion. Sometimes people surprise themselves. Sometimes they do get stopped in their tracks. But when you sign up for a competition, you go out there and you're gonna learn something either way.
Yeah, if you look at this is the convention hall here. If you look at that rig, look how that's how many lanes is that?
It's 20 lanes, and the bars there, as you see, they're 8 feet per lane.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 160-foot rig, not including the it's basically probably 175 feet from one side to the other. It's massive.
Yeah, I've only seen something like that at the games, and they had the age group pavilion, and they would have that out there. So it looks like a very similar setup, but it just doesn't smell like cow shit and pig shit in that convention center.
No, it's a nice layout. They had 2 competition floors again this year, different layout than last year. Last year they were back to actually had more competition floors than 2 last year, but their 2 main ones last year were back to back going in either direction. This time they had the big 20. They had 2 20 lane competition floors, one with the rig, one without the rig that they could do. I think everyone they had a swim on day 1, but on each of the other days you had to work out in each of those stages. And they were fairly close to each other. So for media, it was pretty easy because you could stand in one spot and have access to just turn around and see either side. It wasn't that far to travel for fans. There's a big athlete warm-up area. Obviously, there's a ton of athletes if there are 40 divisions, so they need a big area for that. And then there's plenty of space for vendors as well. And I think that the vendors, they don't have too many vendors there. And so I think most of the ones that they have end up having a pretty good weekend as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the vendors I know is Strike Movement, who you're huge proponent of, and they're really good friends of ours, and they've really just coming there and dealing masters athletes. Was Easy competing? No,
Dex was competing. He was repping Strike. Easy was at Power Monkey last week, and he'll be down at Crucible for the masters competition in South Carolina. So he wasn't here this week. He did compete here last year though.
Yeah, that's right. And speaking of Dex, former games athlete on our team, he's really going all in on the on masters this year. He's pretty pumped up about that. So it's kind of cool. It gives a lot of these new masters athletes, new ones that are moving up into a new division, aging up as you want to call it, kind of a preview of what the upcoming season may look like for them within their age group. I think one of the cool things they have there and is the masters teams, where the team of 2, because I think what they do is, don't they average out the age as opposed to like you both have to be in that certain age group?
Not this year. So the age ranges were 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, 60 plus. And I talked about it on one of the recaps, and I'll mention in the article too, because I think it's very cool. We've seen this trend with elite individual games athletes looking for ways to compete that aren't so stressful on the body or mind in the off season, but just to get some competition reps and have some fun and take advantage of obviously being fit. So they will do team events, and we saw some variations of that over the last couple of years at Wodapalooza. We obviously saw Noah and Chandler go over to compete in Madrid this year, and I think that we'll continue to see some stuff like that. Masters Fitness Collective last year, championship this year, has created this opportunity for some of the games masters athletes is really who are signing up for this thing to either pair up with each other or pair up with someone else that they know and come out here and compete. There were at least, and I apologize if I missed anyone, there were at least 6 masters athletes who have multiple podium finishes at the CrossFit Games that competed on a team this week in Fort Wayne. Carl Jeffrey in the 60 plus, Ron Ortiz, and then on the women's side, Linda Elson and Shanna Bunce teamed up together. They actually competed against Cheryl Brost and her partner. Jen Ryan competed down in the 30 to 39 division, even though she's 43, with Heather Hippensteel, Dave Hippensteel's daughter. And I might be forgetting one or two others, but the point is there's a lot of athletes that have a pedigree of competing at the CrossFit Games, which it's really difficult to qualify. Sometimes the years are really small there, the number of people who can make it, and have been doing it for a long time. And it's not that of a far of a stretch to think that they were competing against people who at one time watched them compete and were motivated to get interested in this thing because of that.
Yeah, was Jason Grubb on a team?
He competed individually in the men's 45 to 49, but it's the same thing. And he did win, and he won most of the workouts. But I'll tell you what, there was a guy in his division, Brigham Abbott, who looked phenomenal, and he was actually tied on points with him. He had a little bit of a pec injury on the legless rope climb workout. He still finished the competition, took second place overall. But those guys in that division, they're like, dude, it's cool. It's cool that Jason comes out here. He's the best guy in our division to do it, and he doesn't have to come and prove anything, but he's out here and we get to test ourselves against him.
Yeah, I think Jason he's one of those. I hate to say it, there's a bunch of ambassadors of the Masters athletes. But I think Jason, he might be, if not the top ambassador for the Masters division, then if not one of the top ones. I mean, the guy travels everywhere. He lives the RV life. You find him everywhere. If he's not competing, he's a big proponent of it. And he's just a nice guy. A great story. I think he epitomizes what a lot of Masters athletes were. He turned 40, wanted a change in lifestyle, found CrossFit, and now he's, he full blown drank the Kool-Aid, and now he's a multiple games champion, and he's just getting better. I mean, usually, I think he's 49. I think he's at the back end of his age group division, and that typically you don't see those athletes winning as they get older into that age group. But he continues to keep on winning. It just shows, how healthy he is.
Yeah, and you get I mentioned Heather Hippensteel. Obviously, her dad is a well-known games champion. You had Annika Greer's mom was here again this year. She won her division. Anna Tobias came here. She dominated, but her mother also competed here. The last name Tunnicliffe. Her mom's last name is Tunnicliffe, I think she might have won her division. They did an interview with her yesterday. They both of them together yesterday. And that's always fun too, just to see like the family element. I'm sure, and the thing is, like, I kind of, part of me feels badly, but there's just so many divisions, so many people competing. You can't tell all the stories. But my buddy Chris Schmolbach, he's an adaptive athlete, and he signed up and competed in this. There's no adaptive divisions here, so he's just competing against men his age in the RX division, and seeing what he could do. And there's all these. If you walk around long enough, there's a woman named Pat. I apologize, I can't remember her last name. She's in the 65 plus women's, probably RX division. She competed here last year. Also, she's 73. She got green, dyes her hair green. She trains alone in her garage in Idaho, an hour outside of Boise. She moved a sandbag for the first time ever in this competition. I was talking to her on Sunday, and she's like, "I had a coach teach me how to do pull-ups for the first time." And she's like, "Oh my God, I ripped my hand. There's blood on my hand. That's the first time that's ever happened." And she's 73, and she's out here doing that stuff. So, you just talk to people, and you hear all these great stories of people who are motivated by one thing or the other. And then you got some guys like Heath Moody, is former games athlete, and he was out there working the competition, and then someone got injured, and they didn't have a partner. I was on a team, so he jumped in and did a workout. Bobby jumped in and did a workout with that guy just so he could keep going. So there's all these little kind of fun, cool stories and things happening. And I mean, it's competitive. People are wanting to win, but you also see a little bit of a different air of levity of people, they're just here having a good time and doing fitness and competing hard, but there's not that cutthroat, and it's not super tense. It's pretty cool, especially after some of the other, competitions that I've been at with, bigger prize purses and bigger names and more on the line.
You spoke about Grub. You actually got a chance, and I think Wad Zombie, our buddy Wad Zombie, he's referring to this. But Yeah, I actually had a chance to jump in a lane and compete against Mr. Grubb. How did that go?
Yeah, you can watch the whole thing, and Will Plummer actually filmed it. I was talking to Bobby Petrus, and he's like, "How's it going?" Whatever. I was just kind of, having a great time, enjoying it. But I kind of feel like working out, watching all these guys, women, men, throwing down. And he's like, "Well, let's get you in a heat." I'm like, "Whoa, what?" He's like, "Yeah, we got open lanes. Which workout you want to do?" I'm like, "Well, most of this stuff's way too heavy for me, but I could probably do the crossover and ski workout. I'm pretty good at crossovers." He's like, "Done deal." I'm like, what are you talking about?" He turns around, he's gone. He comes back, he's like, "2 heats from now, lane 3, you're going against Jason Grubb in his entire division." Okay. So I went to the back warm-up area. I grabbed someone's jump rope. I did a few crossovers. They called the heat. We walked out on the floor, and I gave it my best effort.
So how'd you finish in the heat?
I think there were about 15 of us. I was fifth. I was 10 seconds behind Grub, but like I said, like that's a good workout for me. The rest of the
Yeah,
workouts, I would have been last place. Maybe
well,
not the
you really
swim,
could.
actually. I would have held my
Mm.
own on the swim, but other than that, yeah, I would have been pretty bad.
Yeah, you're really pretty good on the rope, and I imagine the single crossovers you'd be pretty well at, do pretty well at. So, um, speaking of what you mentioned, Ron Ortiz. I think it'd be silly of us not to kind of mention her, but his wife Jessica Ortiz. It's her first year kind of organizing, spearheading. Yeah, Bobby is, he's the one that it's his idea. He's a big, huge, obviously a huge part of it, and he's had a really unique relationship with CJ and the Invictus crew, and Ron. I mean, Ron's every time I go to an event, Ron's there, and they usually have a Master Fitness Collective booth there, and he's usually there, championing the event, not just Masters athletes, but also their event. And I noticed this past year at Wodapalooza, and also at semifinals, the West semifinals, Jessica was there as well, and Ron, and they were, oh no, it was the East semifinal that I
Probably
got to
East since
talk
I
to her.
lived down there.
Yeah, they're from Florida, but it was just cool, just like for her to kind of put this, that you know, to just kind of see her do that and to be a big part of it. And I think they got really well organized. It's the fourth year, well organized, well attended. And I think having someone like Jessica, Ron, involved with Bobby and all the other people part of that collective, it's a great batch. And they always bring in, just when it comes to media, like Bruce. If people don't know Bruce from Bob Media, he was in charge of the media team there. He does amazing stuff. Um, you had Bella and Dylan, emceeing. I mean, they wasted no expense in terms of making this seem like a huge event, which it is. And so hats off to Bobby. He continues to do it every year, and we just can't. I'm glad that you were able to make it back for another year. I hope to make it back for soon for another year myself. So shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica was my main point of contact in the build up to this over the last several months. I was talking to her and setting everything up, and she was all over the place this weekend. And you know, uh, there were some major improvements from last year to this year. She really took that seriously. She there was no. It was really well organized. There were just small things like it's just a massive convention center. So, but instead of bringing in corrals, they just had circles on the floor that labeled. There were colored circles that labeled the lane numbers. And when it was your turn, you just stood on your lane number, and there was no confusion about that. And a bunch of athletes told me that small things like that just make the weekend run more smoothly, and they appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. Let's rewind it a little bit. Let's talk about where you started the week. Obviously, you're in Houston. Went from Houston to Crossville, and you attended Power Monkey. For those people who don't know what Power Monkey is, well, there's two things. There's a Power Monkey camp, and which is a component of Power Monkey Fitness. So, kind of maybe explain what Power Monkey Fitness is, and then we can talk about the camp.
I actually, I'm not really sure which one came first or how they built off of each other in the early days. But Power Monkey Fitness is something that it was actually at Masters Fitness Champ Collective last year that I really got to know Dave Durante, Jordan Samuel, Mike Service a lot better. And they sent me like an access to Power Monkey Fitness, and so I've been dabbling in their app a little bit throughout the year. And more or less, if you want to improve your gymnastic skills, and this year, if even we've seen people like Annie Sakamoto go through the protocols for a press to handstand over a series of months, post her progressions on Instagram, and you can see the progress that she's made. But you name the gymnastics skill that you want in CrossFit or in gymnastics, and they have a very, very streamlined and efficient way for you to develop those skills, starting from nothing if you're at nothing, and building up to, you know, where you want to be over a period of time, which is obviously going to be variable depending on you, how much work you put in, your biological capacity for it, your training experience, etc. So that's Power Monkey Fitness, and at least my experience with it. Power Monkey Camp started, I believe, in 2014. This was their 20th camp, and they have had, I think it seems like they sell it every year. So it's like there were upwards of 100 campers this year. I know there haven't been that many every single year. Obviously, during some of the COVID years, there was a downturn in terms of that. But a lot of these coaches have been there from the beginning. And the ones that haven't been, once they come, they don't really leave very often. They don't want, they certainly don't want to. It's a really, really positive experience for coaches, staff, and athletes who go there. And basically, you just get exposure in 2-hour blocks to 10 different stations with world-class experts in different disciplines who are going to, give you tools that you can go back home with and try to, you got to pick and choose a little bit where you want to put your focus and efforts. But if you want to get better at handstands, on the rings, whatever the skill is, on the bars, with the Olympic lifts, with the rowing, with endurance in general, they have Chris Hinshaw here, and he does a great job of just explaining why, like, people talk about zone 2 is a good example. Like, people talk about zone 2. What is zone 2? Why do you do zone 2? Who needs to do zone 2? How do you progress your zone 2 training? It's not just hopping on a bike and doing 20 minutes twice a week and not thinking about it. There's a science to it. Chris talks about that. They have sleep experts that come in and do seminars, nutrition experts, mindset experts, programming experts. They always have some kind of fun elements that are a little bit unique. You can go on the lake, you can do the ropes course, go to Mayhem for a field trip. There's a reason we didn't do a podcast last week. There was no time.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about some of the coaches. I mean, obviously you mentioned Hinshaw. I think I mean, it was just like a who's who when you were telling me who was there in terms of what I mean.
Yeah, look, I'm not gonna do justice to every single one of them, but basically, you have a Olympic lifting, you have a jerk, you have a clean, and you have a snatch. Mike Service does the snatch, Chad Vaughn does the clean, Vanessa McCoy and Cheryl Hayworth do the jerk. Cheryl Hayworth still has the American record for the clean and jerk, I think. It's Chad Vaughn. I don't think many need to know. I think between them, they have like 20 national titles or something, those two alone. The others have been lifting their whole life. Mike Service is one of the owners, I believe. He's been there for every camp. Vanessa's been there for 2/3 of the camps. So the experience is very high. The proficiency in terms of coaching and the competition is very high. On the gymnastics side of things, Dave Durante still coaches the handstand station. Sometimes he has some help with that. Duke Van Vliet, collegiate gymnast. He's basically like number 2 in the U.S. to Dave during their competitive years, from what I understand. And Emily Bridgers do the rings. Shane DeFreitas and Casey Clark, they both might be Olympians. They do the bar muscle station. Lindsay Shoup, who's one of the best. She's like got all these records in rowing. She does the rowing station. Dave Newman does the jump ropes. He's been there at every single camp. There's Jason Layden. He'll contribute stuff over the course of the week. He's been there for 19 of the 20. That's some guy that they invited for some reason. So there's a ton of, I mean, it's across the board. It's just like I said, there's Duke right there. I was really, really impressed with with him. He's there in the red shirt too. Victor Asoff, one of the best, really inspiring stories in the adaptive division. This guy was participating in the camp, helping the coach a little bit. He did one of the campfire stories. You got a chance to learn about him. You get games athletes past and present there. Margot Alvarez, Andy Sakamoto, Fisi Gafi was there. That's Dr. Chen. There's Isaiah. He's with XFit Lab. There's Chad. I mean, it's just, it's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to soak in. It's like I tried to do everything I could. I still felt like I missed out on some of it. And, but that's the reason why 50% of the people this week are returners, because you can go back a second time and you can get just as much out of it as the first time, it seems like.
It looks like just like an adult summer camp that revolves around like fitness, and just
fitness and education.
Yes, education. I was about to say education, because obviously you're not gonna I think you mentioned on Sevon's podcast. For those who haven't watched, Brian was on Sevon last night. And we're not going to rehash what he talked on Sevon because you can go and watch that yourself. But you mentioned, like picking up, just like tips and some things that you wish you would have known before you started, or things that you will use as a coach now. So it seems like you said, a lot more educational, learning, add more tools to the toolbox, I guess, as they say it. You're muted.
It's one thing to be given information, and then it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this information? But it's different when you're there, and when you're being instructed on something, shown how to do something, then you're asked to do it, then they reposition your body, or they give you a visual cue, or they ask you to look in a mirror. Dave Newman does it in a place where you can see yourself doing the jump ropes in the mirror, and you can really quickly see. I didn't even mention the kettlebells. That was probably where I was exposed the most, with Jeff Martone and Kyle Filer and AJ Cara, I think is her name, Andriana Cara, AJ Cara. And these guys each have world records in kettlebell. You can do VO2 max testing there, which I got the opportunity to do. That's Dawn. She does the mindset training. So that one, go back one page. This girl in the middle, one slide. There's a girl in the middle on the rowers there. It was her 13th one previously. It's Karen. This is her 13th Power Monkey camp.
Oh wow! And you're at one. You got
her.
A while to catch.
Not her. The woman before.
This one.
Yep. 13 camps.
Wow. That's great. And I think they do essentially 2 per year, right?
Yeah, there's a fall, which we just did, and then there's spring that's in April. They also have some that are in Europe occasionally. They're less people, cost more and more, but it's it's more exclusive in every way, obviously. So, yeah, that was really cool. I mean, I was really grateful that they invited me there. I kind of went in with a relatively open mind. I tried to go to every station with an open mind. Adrian Bosman was there, and his wife was there. So it was awesome to get to know her and get to see him. And by the way, if you didn't know who Boz was, you would not have known that he was anyone other than a camper there. He just integrated with everything that was going on. Never brought any attention to himself, just did the work with everyone else.
I'm not surprised by that at all, just knowing Boz. But and it's not too far. I mean, for Boz, someone like him, it's maybe a 3, maybe 2.5, 3-hour trip for him from where he lives in Nashville. So, yeah. And who knows? He might pick up there's Emily right there in the middle. For those who don't know, Emily was a gymnast at Georgia, competed as a gymnast at Georgia before she picked up CrossFit, and now retired, but she's obviously still involved in a space. And you mentioned they had a day where you went to Mayhem, and I guess you did a couple Metcons there.
Yeah, so obviously just going to CrossFit Mayhem is an experience, and if people haven't been there before, that can be all that matters, is just having the chance to go there and see this place that you otherwise only see or hear about on podcasts and YouTube and whatever. But while they're there, they're not going to waste time. That's the one thing that's definitely not happening at Power Monkey Camp. And so Chris Hinshaw really takes the lead, but there were, I don't know, 60 to 70 people that were trying to go through these stations. So they had 3 groups, and they were trying to target or address some things that aren't necessarily addressed in the camp otherwise, like barbell cycling, or how to assess working paces versus resting paces, or developing a lactic build up in a certain muscle group, and then we're doing an active recovery. So there's definitely some thoughtfulness that's put into the programming that you do there that is still different, or in addition to what you were experiencing at the 10 stations throughout the rest of the 4 days.
Well, hopefully, you should be going back at some point. You're going to be back in Charlotte, and hopefully coaching again at some point. For those that know, Brian actually is a coach at his affiliate, Taylor Self's affiliate there. So hopefully you'll be able to use some of the stuff.
Taylor doesn't. It's Andy Hendel's affiliate. Taylor Self coaches there full time, though. Yes.
There we go. Thank you for correcting me. But yeah, well, you are probably the worst employee they've ever hired.
Well, they don't. Well, yeah, I guess.
Sorry.
Embarrassing
Like,
me.
um, but no, that's really cool that you were able to experience that. I'm jealous. I remember when you came. God, when was it? Was it? I think it was. I'm trying to remember when, but you came up to me and was like, "Hey, I don't know what we're doing, but this weekend I need off. I'm going to Power Monkey Camp. They just invited me to go. I have to go, and I'm glad that the travel worked out so that you were able to go there and Master Fitness Collective. So I know those are two things that meant that you circled on your calendar for the travel, and I'm glad you got to make it out there. In other news, while you were gone, a lot of stuff was going on. The main thing being they finalized the leaderboard. I think it's finalized. Maybe you might know a little bit more than I do, but they finalized the qualifiers for Wodapalooza.
Oh,
so
I
I don't know
haven't.
if you
I haven't seen this. No.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of a quick look at it. Obviously, they're taking the top 20. Let me shrink this down here. But this is the right now. Like I said, I don't know if it's finalized yet. From what I heard, it is. But here's the names we're looking at. The top 20 will be competing in the league division. So Austin Hatfield, a pretty convincing win. 33. I mean, he won by 55 points over Juan. Do you know this? I do not know this.
Juan Ignacio, I think I've seen that name once before, but I couldn't tell you anything about him. I think Hatfield
Yeah.
is competing in Crucible. That's my next stop as far as CrossFit's concerned, and I will start dialing in on that roster and those athletes this week. But I think he's competing there. He was obviously incredibly close to make it to the games this year, so he's going to have a chance to compete against a guy who just barely beat him out, James Sprague, Colton Mertens, and a few other athletes that are kind of in that caliber. So, Hatfield seems to be on the rise. Obviously, great performance. Here, we think about last year's offseason where Fabian Benito was crushing the online qualifiers. He ends up getting a win in Dubai. He ends up making it to the games. So, Austin Hatfield, in my opinion, is definitely surging right now. A lot of momentum in his direction, and it's another good kind of feather in his cap.
Yeah, there's some other names here. Harry Lightfoot, that's a name we've seen. It'd be kind of neat to see him live in competition. Kevin Jers, Jack Rosema, who we know from the Army Warrior Fitness team, just kind of missed. He's been on the cusp of making the games. He did really well. I think he did really well last year at Wodapalooza. CJ Gerald, Trevon Benton, John Wood. Now here's a question. Obviously Alexander Caron. Did he have to do the qualifier? Doesn't he get an automatic invite?
Who?
Caron?
For what?
For podiuming at a previous Wodapalooza?
No, I don't know actually. I'm not sure when that. I'm not sure what they're I didn't see a list of their like qualifiers who qualifies for invites and not this year, but yeah, he certainly. It's a good question, but he seems like he's made it either way.
Wait, what did he? No, he didn't. Did he win? He did not win Wodapalooza 2 years ago, correct?
No, was that
The old it was Velner, Caron, and then Cornier?
Cornway? Maybe I think Cornway because it was all Canadian podium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
And that was the year that like Dallin was 5th. I think Hopper and Taylor Self competed at there. They were like 10th and 11th. Yeah, I think that sounds right. And all the Saxons, all the Panchik brothers finished like 7, 8, 9 or something like that.
Yeah. You'll be able to see Drake Lewis again, Nikita Yunduf, who's a fan of ours. But yeah, that's what it looks like on the men's side.
Victor Lundal, I competed in the same competition, not the same division as him in Sweden.
At the Halmstad.
Yeah, and just keep going down just a little bit. I mean, I guess it's finalized, but like there's going to be good people in the RX division also, as there always are, and it's so we'll probably see some decent names down here. Well, we already see some decent names on here. Max Krieg impressed me at semifinals. All the guys that are just outside. Lucas Hoyza, I think, competed on team this year. Josh Hong, we've seen compete a couple times. Thiago Lucis has been on my radar for a couple of years. So Roy's done. My goodness. Andra Stearns, who was second to Drake Lewis at the Iron Games. So, yeah, of course, the elite division, but also the RX division at Wodapalooza. If you're qualifying for that, you're a savage.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been a kind of a barrier, kind of like you've mentioned before. He's won the RX division. Sydney McAlishan won the RX division. It's usually kind of a, you do well there, you win the RX division. It bodes well that you're going to do well in the game season. We'll move over to the women's side real quick. There'll probably be a lot more familiar names there. I mean, this woman. I mean, there's probably not an online qualifier during the off season where you'll not see this person competing at. But Grace Walton. I mean, Gracie Walton. We've been really high on her. It's really cool to see her do really well in this. And then Lexi Neely, Rebecca Foussier. I mean, just Rose Scott. I mean, it's a Freya.
Yeah, Emily Ruffalo, Androsic,
yep.
who she was training with that Brute Camp last year. She's up at Mayhem now with Dom. Obviously, Freya's a former games athlete. Sarah Alicia shows up all the time.
Yep.
Oh yeah, great job, Allison Weiss, my fellow level 1 graduate from July.
Yeah, I just recently had a conversation with her. It looks like she found a training camp, so pretty proud of her. And yeah, just is something where she's really been working to get back. Because people don't know Allison. Allison was the 16 to 17-year-old champion in 2016, and then kind of took off from CrossFit, and then slowly and surely kind of got back in, competed in team. Just missed it. And even 2021, she was with one of the Invictus teams at Granite Games, just missed in the games, and then competed individual this past year. And she has individual aspirations again this year. So great job by her. But
a couple of these Europeans that they competed in Madrid, and then they turned around and did this qualifier and did well. Alasna Gazabla, someone that was just in the 20s there as well. They were just scrolling down, but that's kind of crazy to do a big competition like Madrid, turn around and then do this well in a big qualifier like Wodapalooza.
Yeah, and those qualifiers were no joke. I was talking to a bunch of people doing them. There's like 2 or 3 that were just taking people's soul. The one I heard about was the dumbbell snatch workout. I think it was workout 4. That people it literally took people's soul. And then moving on to the RX division, this is who we got. Barring anyone not accepting their invitation, they'll move up. Samantha Pugh, who's been around, she's for regional semifinals athlete. Our buddy Elliot Miller, Gabriel Spence, Lydia Fish. I mean, there's some well-known names here as well.
Absolutely. Kelly Benfew was at the games this year with the team out of Oceania. Yeah, Andra Moistis was the one I was thinking of. She was also in Madrid competing. So plenty of talent, elite and RX divisions at Wodapalooza. And congratulations to all those athletes. It's like Patrick said, it's not an easy test, and it's not an easy field to place in the top 40 of.
And they're immediately going to be thrown in there with games athletes, because obviously all the games athletes get an invite. We don't know. I mean, Wodapalooza will put it out on their own discretion in terms of who accepted invites for the individual competition. But this is a great opportunity to see how some of these athletes stack up. I mean, I know the first name that pops up to mind last year was someone like Brittany Weiss, who everyone knows as a team athlete. She competed individual, and I believe she had a top 10 finish. And and this is from it kind of was a way to test herself out. Brittany is the older sister of Allison Weiss, but pretty cool. I'm really excited to see. Obviously, Wodapalooza is always a good time. Here we go. Rose Scott with the 262-pound clean and jerk this past weekend at Florida State.
She's just insanely strong.
Yeah. A friend of mine, she's actually down at her gym. I think it's Boynton Beach, CrossFit Boynton. But she's a coach there, and she says she is just ridiculously stronger. She's known for her strength. I mean, she's known for other things as well in terms of her fails in some of these feats of strength. But yeah, looks like she has proven that. I think obviously, Brian, you're in the airport. I don't know how much time left. I think we can't let you off the hook without one. We never did get a chance to discuss some things, and one of the things I think no one really heard much of your opinion about was CrossFit finally announced their move to Fort Wayne,
Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. You're in Fort Wayne. No. Oh, I just put something there. No. Yeah.
When I
So
get, dude, when I got here on Friday, I was a little bit tired that day, and I was like, I made the same mistake visually. Like I saw Fort Wayne and I read it as
Yeah.
Fort Worth because Fort Worth was on my mind, and I was like, shit, did I go to the wrong airport?
Oh, that's messed
Anyway,
up.
yeah. CrossFit made their announcements that they're gonna have competition, 4-day competition for the CrossFit Games in Fort Worth. One week later on the calendar, basically, than they had the CrossFit Games this year. I think that is in large part to do with the Olympics, and they wanted to push towards the end of the Olympics rather than in the middle of it, which I think is a good decision. You know, I've seen all the rumors and people talking that 4 days. I think forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but I think there were 27 total divisions that competed at the CrossFit Games this year. I also think that Dave or someone else had said that a majority of the competition next year in Texas will be indoors. And so if you factor in all those variables, it just seems like extremely unlikely that all 27 divisions are going to compete in one arena for most of their events over 4 days. So there's probably some bigger and different changes that are coming. But from what we know, I mean, the rumors about the games going to Texas have been circulating for basically since the games began, or the announcement was made that Madison was not going to be hosting in 2024. So not super surprised in that regard. And what I know from the conversations I've had with CrossFit is that they are aware of some of the things that they weren't super happy with this year in terms of their execution across the CrossFit game season, and that I'm very confident that in the conversations that they've had with the city of Fort Worth, Dickies Arena, all of which were involved in this announcement process, that they will be looking to make sure that that area of Fort Worth and Dallas is going to be bought in the same way Madison was, that it's a special experience. My understanding is that arena has more seats inside of it than the Coliseum did. So, hopefully there won't be people like as many people who buy tickets and are attending there that are left to watch on the outside when the premier events are happening indoors. But there's a lot of questions that remain to be answered. There are some other venues, competition venues nearby that can be used. Will they be used? How will they be used? Will we have really early events? Will we have late events outdoors maybe? What's the swimming situation like in Fort Worth? Or are we going to have another CrossFit Games without a swim? So there's a lot of logistic sides of things. I'm always curious about sponsors, vendors, partners. Think about it at Madison. How much square footage was set aside for a vendor village? Indoor and outdoor food areas, all that stuff. The nice thing about an arena is there's concessions there. So you can use the concessions that already exist and the food that's inside of there, or you might be able to make up a deal where it's like, the healthier food options that we're used to having across the competitions can take over those spaces for the week, which I think would be very cool. And I kind of hope they do that. But when people, it's not like cheap to get a vendor spot at the CrossFit Games. And so if all the action's happening indoors, how are you going to make sure that people are still interacting with the vendors, sponsors, areas, whatever, and make that a meaningful investment for them? What's the diversity of the floor layout look like, and how much creativity may or may not exist compared to some of the stuff that we've been able to do in Madison with the dog park, with the North Park. You remember the years that they built the obstacle course there when they did Strongman Sphere, the field looked a lot different than it ended up looking the last couple of years. So there's tons of logistics questions that come into my mind. But Dave and Adrian and everyone else who's on that team for the most part has been doing this for a long time. I'm sure they're asking the same questions, and hopefully probably asked those questions prior to making this decision. And I have no reason to doubt that they're going to have something special to make sure that the saying is everything's bigger in Texas, and I'm sure that they want to carry that mantra forward when it comes to CrossFit Games too.
It'll be fun. It'll be really interesting. Yeah, I mean, it seems like every year that they've changed, whether it be I never went to Carson. I think you have been to Carson, but in terms of there's always like a feeling out period where that first year is just still trying to figure it out, and by year 2 or 3, it gets better. And
Those
I think
were the strike movement guys.
Oh, all right. Tell them I said hi.
Yeah, they're brought to board, but they said, "What's up?"
Yeah, good guys. Was Jeff one of them? I didn't see. I couldn't tell if it was Jeff.
That was Mark.
Oh, Mark, I love Mark. Yeah. You mentioned it very briefly, but obviously this weekend you're going to be doing taking some time to yourself. You and your brother are going to go, watch some disc golf. But after that, it's back to CrossFit and it's back to the Crash Crucible. Who you've been talking about this for a while. You're really excited about that. You mentioned it earlier in our show in terms of the athletes that are going to be there. But this is, I don't know how many years this has been for JR throwing this event, but it seems like every year it's kind of also one of those events that kind of just you see some games athletes that compete there, and then or
This will
future
be
games
this.
athletes. I mean,
Yeah, this will be the 4th year. It first popped on my radar in the fall of 2020. There weren't obviously a lot of competitions going on. He was able to run one, and I think that Josh Miller got 2nd place. Josh Miller had won the French Throwdown and qualified for the games the previous year, and he lost to a guy named Jason Hopper.
Yeah.
And I was like, I reached out because Jacob Pfaff competed there and Josh Miller. I reached out to those guys. I think Taylor Self was actually 4th that year. And I was like, hey, you guys know anything about this guy, Jason Hopper? And they're like, yeah, dude, guy's legit. Well, lo and behold, he comes and wins the semifinal, makes the games, and 2 years later, he's having a top 10 finish. So, yeah, Shelby Neal has won that competition. And obviously made the games this year as well. This is going to be cool. JR has, in my opinion, gotten better every single year. And the thing that I like, look at that media post. This is like, he's not this one, the one that's below it. Those are the past champions though. Yeah. And he puts out this thing, media rules. Anyone who's been involved in media and CrossFit, you know that this is not what you usually get when it comes to media rules. You get this freaking booklet with all these rules and these limitations and these specificities. And it's just like, holy shit. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? This is simple, to the point, and direct. And that's how all of his communication is. There's no bullshit. You don't have to worry about things running on time. You don't have to worry about things not being organized. Like, he takes care of all the details. And if he doesn't, he is his biggest critic, and he will make sure that it doesn't happen again. I've had the privilege to work with him in that regard for the last year in developing some of these things, talking about the workouts, talking about the how he wants to go about doing many different things. And then we're going to be able to represent a lot of that on the live stream, on the Sevon podcast. They've been making big efforts to make sure that we have a really robust internet, which Sevon talked about last night, so that it can be a high quality production. We're going to have tons of people on site there. Susan Hiller will be running some cameras on the floor. Peter, Coffee Pods and Wads is going to be there. Taylor South's going to be there. Jason Hopper, Tyler Watkins, obviously me. We're going to bring in some guests throughout the weekend. Sevon and I are going to cover most of the competition, but we're going to have other people come in. We're not trying to talk for 10 and 12 hours a day every day. But we will try to make sure that the athletes there, by the way, in every category are pretty impressed. It's a pretty impressive roster for something that's not considered a premier event, so to speak. So I am super excited about that. You're absolutely right. And I think that if you're around that weekend and get a chance to tune in, that you won't be disappointed.
Yeah. And that's pretty cool because it's kind of a warm up for you guys, not the athletes, but the following weekend after that, 2 weeks after that, I believe, is Rogue. Obviously the Rogue has been finalized. The biggest thing, I think we were kind of talking about Rogue previously, but I think since we last spoke about it, Tia was announced as being the final athlete for the women. You talked about it a little bit on Sevon last night in terms of Tia being there. I mean, we both know Tia personally. We've had many times we've talked to her. We saw her at the games. We've seen what she's been doing. She's obviously been training. What are your expectations for Tia at Rogue? Just knowing what we know right now.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of summarize what I said last night. I'm assuming that if she's deciding to do this, that she's healthy enough to do it. There's a ton of questions regarding the women's body and what they're capable of doing so soon after pregnancy. But if she's signing up there, you have to assume that any athlete was going to make a decision that's responsible for their own body. So my expectations for her is top 5 at worst, and she's probably one of the 2 women that I think has a chance to win.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I agree with that. It's like she wouldn't do this. She's not going to go out there to embarrass herself. Um, she's a seven. You know, I mean, she's she's a champion. She's the greatest individual athlete in CrossFit, male or female, and she has the titles to back that up. And she's competed against some of the, we brought it up in terms of someone like Laura Horvath. If there's no Tia, Laura Horvath, it would probably be the most dominating female athlete if it wasn't for Tia. And now we get to see this Laura Horvath, who finally won the championship, to kind of maybe go face to face with Tia, and this new version of Tia versus this new version of Laura. So I'm excited
Well,
to see that.
I mean, yeah, Tia has rescinded 2 titles to Laura this past year, Rogue Invitation and CrossFit Games, that she didn't have a chance to take the floor and defend for herself. I know that doesn't sit well with her, and that she doesn't. I think she would. I don't think she's gonna like losing no matter what. But I think that she'd almost rather lose in competition than sit on the sidelines and watch someone take her title from her. Even though that might sound like super weird to say, I think that's how she's wired. Like she doesn't want to go down without a fight. So if she can't compete because she's pregnant, she can't fight. So she's going to go out there and fight. And she's, I think that I'll probably give Laura her due. I'll probably pick her to win. I'll probably pick Tia second going into it. But I kind of feel like it's almost a coin flip between the two of them. And then, there's certainly some other women that'll have something to say about it. I think Emma Lawson's going to be in the mix. Gabby McGowan will be in the mix. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 others that maybe surprise a little bit or overperform, or the program is really good for them, or have a perfect weekend and they can threaten for maybe the last podium spot. But those are probably the ones that are the most likely to be kind of in the hunt.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, I mean, you talk about knowing your body and fitness and stuff like that. I mean, it's quite a struggle for you, because I know in terms of just staying fit while you're on the road with all the traveling you do. So, I mean, how you've been maintaining your own fitness throughout this, especially in Europe? Obviously, you competed in a couple competition. I mean, you did a competition, but yeah, how are you? How's the body feeling? How's the body holding up?
Dude, I'm like actually really pleased with how things have gone from a fitness perspective on this trip. I was quite concerned about it, if I'm being frank. It's part of the reason why I started the Friendly Wads, was to have some accountability as I'm doing these traveling, to make sure that I'm getting in the gym, getting in workouts on the road, even if it's in the hotel room, whatever I can do. Obviously, if you do it, it's kind of like that's a shot from the competition I did in Halmstad, Sweden. So I get 3 pretty intense workouts in that day. But like this morning, I did as you see here, a 45-minute bike on the Concept 2 bike erg. Yesterday, I jumped in with that burpee dude, Alan, and did the Death by Burpees. I jumped in and did the workout with the Masters athletes that Bobby allowed me to do the day before that. So just taking opportunities when they come and making sure that you don't pass them by. It's easy to say, no, I'll get another time, but those things start to add up. And I was actually really I surprised myself in Sweden. Like I outperformed what I thought my fitness level was, given the lack of consistency that I've had with training. Strength numbers are down, but fitness feels pretty good. And I feel like all in all, I managed this 7-8 weeks, whatever it's been, very well from that perspective.
That's good. And those who we do, if you click on the top where it says Friendly Wads, you'll be able to see the past September wads. And I like going through those and seeing some of them. It's almost like I'm cherry picking, but it's kind of cool. I like to kind of challenge myself. So for those who are always looking for a good workout, please click on Friendly Wads. You'll see August, September, and October in there, and take a look and see what Brian's doing. Try it out. If you try a Friendly Wad, please repost or send us your time. Let us know. We'll repost and share it with you and see how you line up against Brian.
I don't know if I always put my scores in, but absolutely, yeah. That's I know there are people that have done some of these. It's always cool when someone sends me a DM or whatever and says, "Man, I did this workout. It was awesome," or something like that. That's just sharing what I'm doing, and if you're motivated to do it, absolutely give one a try.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I mean, this will actually be one of shorter shows. So, it could be right around an hour, but I know you got some traveling to do. Getting back.
Actually, I did the math. After the flight today, it'll be 70 hours flying on this trip.
Wow. That's Well, you get to be home for a little bit, I guess. And even when with Crash Crucible, I mean, well, you got you got you got this weekend to kind of with the golf, disc golf. What do you got the following weekend?
Crucible.
Crucible, yeah, Crucible. Um, what's after that?
1
Weekend
week off.
Roll. Yeah, no way. No, I'm sure it's a local competition you'll find yourself at.
I'm gonna check the calendar and see if there's a local disc golf competition I can sign up for.
Yeah, definitely should do that. I mean, it's been a while since we played a tournament. Probably since we were in Chicago, it was probably the last time we played a tournament. So.
I did play one in I played one in Charlotte. I just didn't advertise it because I finished dead last.
All right, well, that's good. That's good. But that was against like a bunch of elite, disc golfers, right?
Yeah. Of course.
Of course. Yeah. Well, thanks for your time again, everyone. New fall merchandise is out. Go over to BeFriendlyFitness.com. Order it. I mean, the pre-sale goes up to Crash Crucible, so for I guess another
about 2 weeks, maybe a little longer.
Yeah, and as always, you can support us on Patreon. We have those new levels up. We've had quite a few people that leveled up into the higher level, so thank you for doing that. We have a lot of cool stuff in store. We finalized the design for our T-shirt for those people at that tier. We also have a Be Friendly Weekly Digest where it's growing. Our boy Teddy is working on that. Him and Chad are doing a great job with the Be Friendly Weekly Digest. That's available as well. And also, as always, we have a bunch of other things. Brian, you have anything else you want to say or add or want to talk about?
No, I think they're getting ready to call our flight here in a couple minutes.
No Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce news or anything you want to talk about? Or
if there's a news out there about those people, I don't know what it is.
Well, I can only imagine what your fantasy football team looks like over the last couple of weeks, since you probably have so disconnected from it.
No, I think this was week 4, right? I think we're 2-2 and 3-1, so we're doing okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I just got smashed this past week. I'm like 1-3 in my high dollar league, and it's pissing me off. But anyways, well, hey, thanks for we are trying to have another one probably hopefully this week where we will actually hopefully have a special guest on, and then obviously we'll be back to normally scheduled some more podcasts next week with we're hoping to bring in some guests, some people, and just catch up with them, see what they're doing. But until then, I think that's all I got. So as always, be friendly, our friends. Please be friendly, our friends. How's that?